Welcome to this financial journey. And when I say journey, I'm not talking about a plane trip, a cruise, or a high-speed train ride. I'm talking about a much more intimate and transformative journey, the journey you embark on within yourself when you decide to look at money differently. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a collection of ideas or reflections, but an awakening, a new way of interpreting what it means to have and create wealth. Imagine for a moment that you're at a crossroads. One path leads you back to where you've always been, with the same routines, the same spending habits, the same worries at the end of each month. And the other path, a less traveled one, invites you to think differently, to plant small seeds that, over time, become robust trees that will provide shade, fruit, and oxygen not only for you but for those around you. Capitalizing is a word many associate solely with finance, banks, investments, and numbers on a screen. But in reality, capitalizing is much deeper. Capitalizing is the art of leveraging what you have today so that it's worth more tomorrow. It's not just about money, it's about time, energy, knowledge, and relationships. It's the act of transforming the small into the large, the fragile into the strong, the fleeting into the lasting. It's like collecting a drop of water each day and seeing how, with patience and perseverance, you eventually have an entire ocean. Let me give you a simple example. There's an old story about a man who lived in a humble village and one day decided to save a coin a day in a clay jar. His neighbors laughed at him, saying he'd never amount to anything with just one coin. Weeks passed, then months, and the jar seemed insignificant. But as the years went by, that jar multiplied into many more. The man not only filled his house with jars, but with this habit he was able to buy land, build his own mill, and secure a future for his children. What his neighbors never understood is that building wealth isn't a one-day act, but a daily discipline. And here's the big revelation. Most people underestimate the power of small things. We want quick results, immediate gratification, instant answers. We live in a world where the buy now button and the promise of 24-hour delivery have robbed us of patience. But building capital is the exact opposite. Building capital requires planting today, watering tomorrow, nurturing always, and having the certainty that the seed will grow even if you don't see it underground for a while. It's the act of trusting the process. Think of a bamboo tree. For the first few years, it doesn't seem to grow at all. You water it, fertilize it, take care of the soil, and the ground looks the same with no signs of life. However, in the 5th year, in a matter of weeks, the bamboo grows to over 20 meters tall. What no one saw is that, underground, the roots were strengthening all that time. That's capitalizing, invisibly preparing something that then manifests with extraordinary force. So, why can this shift in perspective on compounding transform your view of money? Because it ceases to be a struggle. Most people work day after day feeling trapped on a hamster wheel. They run, sweat, exhaust themselves, and in the end they're still in the same place. Money comes in, goes out on immediate expenses, and there's no sense of real progress. But when you understand compounding, when you decide that every effort today must become a fruit of tomorrow, everything changes. You no longer see 10 coins as 10 coins, but as 100 in the future. You no longer see an hour of work as an hour wasted, but as another brick in the building you're constructing. Let me tell you a true story. A woman, an office secretary in the United States, never earned an extraordinary salary. She never had luxuries, nor a prestigious position. However, she was disciplined in investing small amounts in the market for over 40 years. When she passed away, she left behind a fortune of millions. Her coworkers couldn't believe it. How did someone with a modest income accumulate such wealth? The answer is simple. She understood compounding. She knew that every dollar saved and reinvested had the power to multiply, and she never underestimated the value of small investments. The promise of this journey is clear: to transform small decisions into big results. Because it's not about having a stroke of luck, an unexpected inheritance, or a business that explodes overnight. It's about consciously choosing every day where you direct your energy, your time, and your money. If you choose to consume immediately today, you'll have emptiness tomorrow. If you choose to sow seeds today, even a little, you'll have abundance tomorrow. And no, this isn't just empty motivational rhetoric. It's a law of life. Look around you. The entire universe operates on the principle of accumulation. Rain accumulates drop by drop until it forms rivers. The earth accumulates nutrients until it bears fruit. Your body accumulates every meal, every workout, every hour of rest, and transforms it into health, energy, and vitality. Even human relationships accumulate. A gesture of trust repeated many times becomes friendship, and a friendship, cultivated over time, becomes brotherhood. Similarly, your financial life capitalizes on every decision. It's not how much you earn today that matters, but how much of it you invest in future savings. It's like building a wall with bricks. Each brick may seem insignificant, but over the years, you realize you have a wall protecting you from storms and enemies. The mistake most people make is giving up when the wall is still low and fragile. True wealth isn't measured by how much money passes through your hands, but by how much of that money you manage to retain, multiply, and grow. And that, my friend, is what it means to build capital. It's not about luck, speculation, or winning the lottery. It's about becoming the architect of your own future. Now imagine that 10 years from now you look back and remember this moment. Perhaps you decide today, right here, to start with a small action. Saving a minimal amount, investing a percentage of your income, cultivating a new habit. At first, it will seem irrelevant, almost ridiculous. But in a decade, that simple act can represent the difference between living with financial anxiety and walking with freedom. The journey begins with a single step, and today that step is called capitalization. Welcome to this voyage, which isn't measured in kilometers but in decisions. From now on, every choice will have the power to multiply its fruits. And that power, though always before you, may never have been seen with such clarity. But before we continue, please write in the comments which city you're listening to this audiobook from, and if this message resonates with you, please like and share this post. This way you'll ensure you don't miss any content that nourishes your mind and brings you closer each day to the life you truly deserve. There's no time to lose. Now let's continue. Chapter number 1. The Financial Awakening. For centuries, most people have been told the same thing: work hard and one day you will be rewarded. It's a message we hear at home, at school, at work, in public speeches. We are taught that the key to success lies in hard work, long hours of effort, sacrificing rest and personal time in the hope of a better tomorrow. And of course, hard work has value because nothing great is built on laziness or inaction. However, real life shows us something uncomfortable. Millions of people work hard their entire lives and never achieve true abundance. People who get up early, who are disciplined, who work overtime, who wear themselves out physically, and at the end of their journey they barely have enough to survive. Then the inevitable question arises: if hard work were the key, wouldn't all the laborers, farmers, employees, and workers who give their lives day after day be rich? The reality is that they are not. This is where the awakening comes in, understanding that money can work for you. There's a natural limit to your hours of effort, but no limit to the growth potential of money when you learn how to make it work for you. You have 24 hours in a day. No matter how hard you work, you can never have 48. Your energy is limited, your health is limited, your strength is limited. But money never sleeps. Money can be growing while you rest, while you spend time with your family, even while you grow old. And when you discover this, the concept of wealth changes radically. Let's consider a concrete example. Imagine two friends starting their careers at 25. The first decides to work hard, put in overtime, and spend his money on things that give him immediate gratification. Clothes, travel, technology, going out. He figures there will be time to save later. The second also works hard, but understands that his money can become a silent partner. He decides to set aside a small percentage of his salary each month and put it into an interest-bearing investment. At first, the difference isn't noticeable. The first friend lives better, has more luxuries, and enjoys more comforts. The second seems to be sacrificing his present. But 10 years pass, and the first friend is still stuck in the same cycle, waiting for his next paycheck each month with bills to pay without any real savings to give him freedom. The second friend, on the other hand, begins to notice that his money has multiplied. Compound interest has done its work. And the most incredible thing is that this growth no longer depends on him working longer hours. His money has started working for him. That's the essence of financial freedom. It's not about having millions in the bank to show off. It's not about buying a luxury car or living in a mansion. It's about having the ability to decide how you spend your time, because your income doesn't depend solely on your daily physical or mental effort. Financial freedom is waking up on a Monday and knowing that even if you decide not to work that day, your income will still come in. It's about being in control of your time and not being a slave to a paycheck. And for many, this concept is so foreign that they don't even consider it possible. They resign themselves to the idea that hard work is all they have, and they live chained to an endless cycle. But when someone understands that money can work for them, something deep within them shifts. It's like waking from a long, heavy sleep. Suddenly, everyday decisions take on new meaning. Spending everything today no longer seems so appealing because you understand that that same money, if put to work, can give you freedom tomorrow. And then the most important question arises: where am I now and where do I want to go? That recognition is the first step on any financial journey. You can't move forward if you don't know where you stand. For some, the reality might be harsh. debt, limited income, disorganized spending. For others, there might be a bit more control but still no clear plan. No matter the situation, the essential thing is to face it head-on with honesty. Just as a doctor can't cure what a patient won't admit, you can't transform your financial life without accepting your starting point. Try this mental exercise. Imagine your financial life is a map. You're the traveler and you want to reach a destination called freedom. But to chart the course, you first need to mark your current location. How much do you actually earn each month? How much do you spend? How much do you save? Do you have any debt? What are the terms? What are your most expensive habits? You might discover that you spend more on instant gratification than you thought. You might notice that you've never saved consistently. You might realize that you're always living on the edge, waiting for your next paycheck just to survive. Recognizing this isn't a defeat, it's an awakening. Because until you're aware of your starting point, you can't chart a new course. A blind person cannot drive a car. A person without financial clarity cannot steer their financial destiny. Financial awakening begins with that clarity. It's not about judging or punishing yourself for past mistakes. It's about looking in the mirror and saying, "Here I am, this is my starting point, and from today onward, I begin my journey toward a new place." Let's consider another real-life example. There are stories of people who earn modest salaries and manage to build substantial wealth simply because they stopped to assess their situation and made a plan. And there are also stories of high-earning professionals who end up bankrupt because they never made that assessment, because they lived as if money flowed endlessly, spending more than they had, trapped in a mirage of wealth. Financial awakening doesn't depend on how much money you earn, but on your willingness to become aware and change. Imagine your life as a field. You can keep working hard every day, plowing, sowing, and harvesting by hand, wearing yourself down in the process. Or you can stop, look at your land, and decide that you need new tools, new strategies, something that will multiply your efforts without destroying you along the way. That decision makes all the difference between always living in scarcity and building abundance. And the wonderful thing is that it doesn't matter what age you are when you make this decision. Of course, the sooner you start, the more time will work in your favor. But even if you start late, the simple act of waking up already changes your destiny. Some people discover the benefits of investing in their 20s, and others discover them in their 50s. The important thing is to discover them and take action. Because as long as you're alive, your money can still work for you. Financial awakening is, in essence, a change of mindset. It's about letting go of the belief that the only way to improve is to work longer hours. It's about releasing the idea that your value lies solely in your ability to produce through physical or mental effort. And it's about embracing the idea that you can make money work for you and with you. That is the beginning of true freedom. This is how this journey begins, with an awakening. With the awareness that there is something beyond hard work, beyond constant exhaustion, beyond the routine of surviving month after month. The awakening is the spark that ignites a new vision. And once that spark is lit, nothing is ever the same again. Chapter number 2, The Magic of Compound Interest. Compound interest is, without exaggeration, one of the most powerful forces in the financial world. Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world, because those who understand it profit, and those who don't pay the price. But beyond famous quotes, what's important is understanding what it means in real life. Because it's not a concept for bankers or mathematicians, but a tool available to anyone who chooses to use it. To understand its magic, let's first consider simple interest. Imagine you lend someone $100 at an annual interest rate of 10%. After 1 year, that person returns your $100 plus $10 in interest. The second year you receive another $10 and so on. You always earn the same amount, $10 per year, because the interest is calculated only on the initial principal. It's like having a cow that always gives the same amount of milk every morning, no matter how many days pass. Useful, yes, but limited. Now let's compare that to compound interest. In this case, you don't spend those $10 of interest. Instead, you reinvest them along with the principal. The second year, you no longer earn 10% on 100, but on 110. The third year, on 121. And so, the base on which your profit is calculated grows each year. It's like having a cow that gives birth to another cow every so often, and together they produce more and more milk. What seems small at the beginning over time becomes something immense. A classic example helps illustrate this difference clearly. Imagine you're offered a choice between receiving $1 million today or receiving 1 penny that doubles every day for 30 days. At first glance, anyone would choose the million. What value could a mere penny possibly have? But if you double it every day, magic happens. The first day is 1 penny, the second 2, the third 4, the fourth 8. After 10 days, you barely have more than $5. It seems ridiculous. However, by day 20, it's already more than $5,000. And on day 30, that penny has grown into more than 5 million. The growth is slow and almost invisible at first, but explosive at the end. That's the essence of compound interest, the silent accumulation that suddenly becomes a giant leap. This brings us to a rule of thumb every investor should know, the 72 rule. It's a simple formula for calculating how long it takes for your money to double at a given interest rate. You simply divide 72 by the annual rate, and you get the approximate number of years it will take for your investment to double. For example, if your money grows at 6% annually, you divide 72 divided by 6 equals 12. That means it takes 12 years for your money to double. If you achieve a 12% rate, you divide 72 divided by 12 equals 6. In just 6 years, your money doubles. And while it might seem like a mathematical exercise, it's actually a financial compass that demonstrates the power of time. Imagine two people applying this rule. The first starts investing at age 25, with an average annual interest rate of 10%. Approximately every 7 years, their money doubles. So by age 32, they have double the amount. By age 39, quadruple. By age 46, 8 times more, and so on. By the time they reach 65, what started small has multiplied several times over, and they live with the peace of mind that their money works even when they rest. The second person, however, decides to start late at age 45. They begin with the same amount and the same rate, but they lack 2 decades of compounding. That difference of 20 years represents not double, but tens of times more wealth for the one who started early. Because in the world of compound interest, time is the most valuable resource. History is full of examples of those who understood this and transformed their lives. Warren Buffett, one of the most famous investors on the planet, began investing as a child. He didn't inherit a fortune or win the lottery. He simply grasped the magic of compound interest from a young age. Today, his wealth is legendary, but the curious thing is that he accumulated more than 80% of it after turning 60. Why? Because the money he had invested in his early decades reached the explosive phase of compound growth. 4 years, it seemed like nothing extraordinary was happening, and then suddenly his wealth grew like a rocket. But you don't have to look only at millionaires to understand this. Think about your own life. Imagine you decide to invest $100 a month starting at age 20 in a fund that yields 8% annually. It might sound small, almost insignificant, less than what many people spend on nights out or coffee. But if you maintain that discipline, by the time you reach 65, you'll have more than $700,000. And if you started 10 years later, at 30, you'd end up with just over $300,000. The difference in those initial 10 years is almost $400,000. Not because you invested more, but because you let time and compound interest work their magic. What's surprising is that many people still don't believe it. They see the initial growth as so small that they get bored and give up. They start saving, see that in a year they barely have a little more, and think it's not worth it. It's like planting a tree and, after a week, getting angry because it hasn't yet borne fruit. They pull it up, discard it, and never know what it could have been. The one who perseveres, on the other hand, understands that the invisible is as important as the visible. That what happens underground is what later appears on the surface. The difference between simple and compound interest, then, is the difference between living in scarcity and living in abundance. Simple interest gives you a static, recurring return the same every year. Compound interest gives you dynamic, ever-increasing, multiplying growth. And best of all, it doesn't discriminate. It works the same for a student saving a few coins in their piggy bank as it does for an entrepreneur investing millions. The principle is the same. Reinvest your earnings, let time do its work, and you'll see results that seem magical but are actually mathematical. The moral of the story is clear. The sooner you start, the better. Because time is your best ally. It doesn't matter if the initial amount is small. What matters is the habit of reinvesting and letting the snowball effect take over. Like that story of the two friends. One started investing early, albeit with modest amounts, and the other waited until he had more money to begin. At the end of their lives, the one who invested less but started earlier ended up with much more. Because in the game of compound interest, it's not the one who contributes the most who wins, but the one who starts first and remains consistent. That's the true secret of financial magic. It's not about working yourself to exhaustion, nor about seeking risky shortcuts. It's about understanding how a small action repeated over years becomes a gigantic transformation. Compound interest isn't seen in days or even months. It's seen over decades. And those who have the patience to wait reap a harvest that seems miraculous, though in reality it was always written in the mathematics of time. Chapter number 3. Time, your invisible ally. Time is the most democratic resource there is. We all have the same 24 hours a day, the same 7 days a week, and the same 12 months a year. However, when it comes to money, not everyone uses it the same way. For some, time becomes an ally that multiplies their resources, while for others it becomes a silent enemy that steals opportunities. The fascinating thing is that it doesn't matter so much how much money you have to start with, but when you decide to start. Imagine two 20-year-olds hearing for the first time about the importance of investing. One of them, motivated, opens an investment account and decides to put $100 each month into a fund that yields an average return of 8% annually. The other, although intrigued, thinks he has his whole life ahead of him and that there will be time later. He prefers to spend, travel, and enjoy himself, convinced that when he's older and has a higher income, he can make up for lost time. 10 years pass. The first, consistent, has already invested $12,000 of his own money, but thanks to the power of time and compound interest, he is almost $18,000. The second, only at 30, decides it's time to take his finances seriously and begins investing the same $100 a month. Both continue doing so until they are 65. The result? The first, who started at 20 and let time work its magic, ends up with more than $700,000. The second, who started 10 years later with just over $300,000. The difference in time translated into a difference of almost double the money, without either of them contributing more of their own money. The only difference was that one valued time as an ally and the other underestimated it. This is the great paradox. When you're young, you think you have all the time in the world, but in reality, that's the most valuable time to sow the seeds. And when you get older, you understand the importance of time, but you no longer have as much leeway to make the most of it. Losing years at the beginning means losing millions at the end. Because compound interest needs time like a seed needs soil. No matter how fertile the seed is, if you don't give it years to grow, you'll never see the tree. A story that's often told is that of Sarah and Michael. Sarah started investing at 22. For just 10 years, she contributed $200 a month and then stopped. Michael, on the other hand, waited until he was 32 to start and from that point on, invested the same amount every month until he turned 65. Do you know who ended up with more money? Sarah. Despite investing for only 10 years and then stopping, her money continued to grow thanks to time and reinvestment. Michael, although he invested more than twice as much in total, started late and was never able to catch up with the advantage Sarah built up in her youth. This story isn't mathematical fiction. It's a reflection of how time multiplies money in ways that seem unfair but are actually simply the result of universal laws. When we understand this, the cost of waiting becomes clear. Every year you postpone your investment decision is equivalent to losing tens of thousands of dollars in the future. Many people say, when I earn more, I'll start saving and investing. What they don't understand is that it's not about the initial amount, but about consistency and the time you dedicate to the process. Even small amounts invested early outperform large sums invested late. It's as if life offers you a ticket for a train that only comes once. If you catch it on time, the journey will be long and full of rewards. If you catch it late, you'll arrive, yes, but never at the same destination. There are true stories that illustrate this. An 18-year-old in a small town decided to save part of his part-time salary. While his friends spent on trendy clothes or going out, he set aside $50 a month in a basic investment account. Years passed, and although at first it felt like it wasn't worth it, by the time he turned 30 he had more than $15,000, the result not of high income but of discipline and time. That same young man, when telling his story, said something that sticks in your mind: I didn't get rich overnight, I simply became friends with time. That friendship, cultivated quietly, opened doors to business, education, and financial security that his friends, who never saved or invested, were never able to experience. Time also teaches another lesson. It's not always about when you start, but how consistently you're willing to persevere. Some people begin, get excited, but soon give up because the result seems slow. It's like planting a tree and digging it up every week to see if it's grown. Patience is time's inseparable companion. Those who understand that great fruits are harvested after years don't despair over small beginnings. Another interesting perspective is to think of time as an emotional multiplier, not just a financial one. When you start early, you gain peace of mind. You know your future is secure, and that allows you to make freer decisions in the present. On the other hand, those who procrastinate live with the anxiety of having to achieve in a short time what should have been started decades ago. It's the difference between rowing with the current in your favor and fighting against it upstream. Perhaps the most inspiring stories are those of young people who, without inheritances or extraordinary salaries, decided to invest from scratch. Some did so by selling things online and allocating a portion of their earnings to investments. Others worked in cafes, shops, or modest jobs, but instead of spending everything, they set aside a percentage. And the curious thing is that none of them saw impressive results at the beginning. There were no luxury cars or mansions in just a few years. But what there was a change in mindset. They understood that time could be their best ally. Over the years, that silent partner multiplied their efforts so that, when they looked back, they realized they had built a solid fortune from almost nothing. Time, ultimately, is that invisible factor that decides who achieves financial freedom and who is left behind. It doesn't distinguish between rich and poor, between countries or cultures. It is impartial, fair, and cruel all at once. Fair because it rewards those who start early and persevere. Cruel because it doesn't forgive those who waste years thinking there will always be a second chance. The decision lies with each of us. To see time as an enemy slipping through our fingers or as an ally that silently multiplies what we sow today. Chapter number 4. Mindset of the Intelligent Investor. Becoming a smart investor doesn't begin with your wallet. It begins with your mindset. The difference between those who achieve financial independence and those who are always chasing money lies largely in how they think and how they cultivate patience. Because investing isn't an impulsive act, but a philosophy of life built day by day. The mindset of a smart investor doesn't seek immediate gratification. It seeks lasting results. It isn't seduced by the fleeting allure of a quick profit, but understands that true wealth is built slowly and steadily. Patience is perhaps the most valuable asset anyone can cultivate. In a world where everything is expected yesterday, waiting seems like an unnecessary sacrifice. However, the disciplined investor understands that each day, each week, and each year in the market is another brick in the construction of their freedom. They don't despair over volatility, nor do they let themselves be swept away by the panic of others. When everyone is selling out of fear, they analyze calmly. When everyone is buying out of euphoria, they remember that nothing goes up forever. This serenity, which isn't something that can be improvised, is the result of training the mind to look beyond the short term. Thinking long term is like looking at a forest instead of a single tree. The average consumer looks at a $100 bill and thinks about what they can buy right now. A dinner, a fashionable garment, a new gadget. The investor, on the other hand, sees in that same $100 the seed of 500 or 1,000 future dollars. They know that if they put it to work in a productive investment, that bill will multiply. And the most curious thing is that neither is wrong in their choice. The difference lies in their perspective. The first gets immediate gratification but loses their future. The second postpones gratification but secures their freedom. This distinction between consumer and capitalist manifests itself in small, everyday decisions. A consumer buys the latest phone model with borrowed money, convinced they need it. A capitalist might settle for an older model and put the difference into an investment fund. At first glance, the choice doesn't seem significant, but multiplied over years, that same attitude determines completely different fortunes. The mindset of the intelligent investor is forged in those moments, at those silent crossroads where most don't even realize they're deciding between becoming poorer or richer. Discipline is the muscle that accompanies patience. It's not enough to understand the importance of the long term, you have to sustain consistent actions over time. The disciplined investor sets aside a portion of their income each month, no matter how small. They don't make excuses, they don't deceive themselves by saying they'll start next year or when they earn more. They understand that the habit is more important than the initial amount. This consistency, seemingly tedious, is what distinguishes them from those who always start but never continue. Because in the end, it's not the fastest who wins but the most consistent. The biggest danger facing novice investors is the temptation of quick money. We live surrounded by seductive promises, schemes that claim to double your money in months, miraculous investments that supposedly never fail, trendy cryptocurrencies that guarantee instant riches. And while a few people do manage to get rich overnight, most end up losing not only money, but also confidence in the investing process. Greed clouds judgment and turns reasonable people into compulsive gamblers. The smart investor recognizes this danger and protects themselves from it. They know that when something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. This is where mindset plays a crucial role. Wealth isn't a matter of luck, it's a matter of mental habits. Those who train their minds to differentiate between speculation and true investment build a solid foundation. Speculation seeks to capitalize on rapid movements, predict the next trend, and profit in the short term. Investment seeks assets that generate real value over time. Both can yield results, but only one is sustainable. The speculator lives with a racing heart, constantly monitoring every fluctuation. The investor sleeps soundly, confident that their money is working for them in the long run, without needing to check every second. At this point, many wonder, how do you train your mind to think long-term? The answer isn't found in complex books or magic formulas. It lies in cultivating small but firm habits. For example, committing to not touching your investments for a whole year, even if there are temporary dips. Or deciding to always reinvest dividends instead of spending them. Or practicing gratitude, remembering that every small investment is a gift to the future, not a burden in the present. These simple gestures train the mind to resist the urge to act impulsively and to value the passage of time as an ally. Another powerful practice is surrounding yourself with information and people who reinforce a long-term perspective. Those who feed daily on alarmist news, short-term charts, and panicked comments will inevitably fall into the temptation of reacting. Those who, on the other hand, study market history, analyze decades-long trends, and talk with experienced investors will develop a calmer and more stable outlook. Mindset isn't formed in a vacuum, it's shaped by the environment. And a smart investor is as careful about what goes into their mind as what goes into their portfolio. Perhaps the most inspiring thing is understanding that this mindset isn't reserved for financial geniuses or millionaires. Anyone, from the young person working part-time to the single mother seeking to secure her children's future, can adopt it. The key is deciding that every action, no matter how small it may seem, aligns with a larger future. Discipline doesn't discriminate between high and low incomes. It only requires commitment. Patience doesn't demand advanced degrees. It only asks for trust that time will do its part. Ultimately, the wise investor understands that true wealth isn't just about accumulating money, but about accumulating options. Every dollar invested is an open door to tomorrow, the possibility of choosing where to live, how to work, and with whom to share your time. Those who succumb to the lure of quick money may gain momentarily, but they remain bound by risk and fear. Those who cultivate patience and discipline may advance more slowly, but they go further and, above all, they arrive with freedom. In the mindset of the intelligent investor, there is no room for haste or desperation. There is a quiet commitment to the future, a certainty that every sacrifice made today will multiply into prosperity tomorrow. And although many fail to understand this and prefer to chase after immediate gains, those who remain steadfast discover over time that the true power of money lies not in spending it, but in putting it to work intelligently and with foresight. Chapter number 5. Habits that build wealth. One of the best-kept secrets of people who have accumulated wealth over the years isn't extraordinary investments, strokes of luck, or unexpected inheritances. It lies in habits, in small, repeated financial routines that, like drops of water on stone, eventually shape a completely different destiny. Most people underestimate the power of a habit because they seek immediate results. But wealth, like health or knowledge, is built on simple practices that multiply over time. The first essential habit is to pay yourself before others. This means that, instead of waiting until the end of the month to see if there's anything left to save, you set aside a fixed portion of your income from the beginning and allocate it to investment or long-term savings. It's an act of respect for your own future. Many people work their entire lives paying the bank, the government, stores, and others first, forgetting to set aside anything for themselves. The result is that, after decades of effort, they find themselves with little or nothing accumulated. The smart investor, on the other hand, makes it a sacred rule to set aside a portion at the beginning, as if it were a mandatory expense, but with the difference that this expense doesn't disappear, it multiplies. A practical strategy that has worked for generations is the October 20/70 rule. 10% of everything you earn goes into investments, 20% into savings and security, and the remaining 70% is for living expenses. Some might think it's impossible to live on only 70% of their income, but in reality, almost everyone could if they adjusted their priorities. The problem is that most people live the opposite way. They spend 110% of what they earn, constantly going into debt, and leaving saving as an unattainable ideal. The October 20/70 rule isn't rigid. It can be adapted to different circumstances. The important thing is to have a clear and automatic formula that forces you to set aside money, without having to negotiate it every month, because otherwise you'll always find an excuse to spend it all. The most interesting thing is that financial habits don't require huge sacrifices in the present, but rather small adjustments that, over time, become significant differences. Let's take a simple example. Someone who decides to make coffee at home instead of buying it daily at a coffee shop. At first glance, it doesn't seem like much. Maybe they save $3 or $4 a day. But after a month, that's already $100. And if those $100 are invested every month for 20 years with compound interest, they grow into tens of thousands. Coffee alone won't ruin anyone, but the habit of mindless spending repeated in multiple aspects of life ends up draining an entire fortune. Another example of these small sacrifices multiplying over time can be seen in those who choose to live in a more modest home than they could afford. While others opt for exorbitant mortgages or rents that consume half their income, they prefer to allocate that difference to investments. Decades later, that quiet decision translates into financial independence, while others are still paying off debt. The same is true with cars. Those who change cars every 2 years because they deserve it lose fortunes to depreciation. Those who drive the same vehicle for a decade and invest the difference accumulate what many will never achieve. There are true stories that illustrate the power of these habits. One of them is that of a secretary in the United States named Grace Groner, who lived modestly her entire life. She never earned a high salary, but from a young age she adopted the habit of investing small amounts in the stock of the single company where she worked. She never sold, never let herself be swayed by euphoria or fear. By the end of her life, her fortune exceeded $7 million, which she donated to charitable causes. No one expected it because her lifestyle was simple, but that was precisely the secret. While others spent on visible luxuries, she was quietly sowing seeds in the soil of time. Another example is that of a janitor named Ronald Redd, who worked cleaning restrooms and parking lots. No one would have guessed that after decades of disciplined saving and investing habits, he had accumulated more than $8 million. His strategy was so simple that many would have ignored it: spend little, save a lot, invest in solid companies, and hold them for the long haul. When he passed away, he donated a large portion of his fortune to his city's library and hospital. These stories remind us that it's not the size of your income that determines wealth, but the size of your habits. Financial habits function like a compass. If every small decision points toward building wealth rather than consumption, the inevitable destination is abundance. But if every decision, however small it may seem, leans toward spending today what could multiply tomorrow, then the destination will always be scarcity. The challenge lies in training the mind to choose the future instead of the present. And although it may seem difficult at first, it soon becomes automatic. Just as someone who exercises stops feeling it as a chore and makes it part of their identity, someone who practices the habit of paying themselves first and saving diligently makes those decisions natural reflexes. Many people make the mistake of believing that financial habits are irrelevant because the amounts they start with are small. They think, what's the point of setting aside $20 or $50 a month? But they forget that it's not the amount, it's the consistency. Those small contributions are like the first drops that fill a bucket. One day, without realizing it, the bucket overflows. And the most beautiful thing is that when those contributions are combined with the power of compound interest, they cease to be small and become a river of abundance. The savvy investor understands that wealth isn't an event, it's a lifestyle. It doesn't arrive overnight. It's the result of years of consistency between thoughts, decisions, and actions. Every habit, no matter how simple it may seem, is a brick in the construction of financial strength. And even if others don't see it, even if they criticize or mock these sacrifices, time always proves them right. Because those who pay their bills first, those who apply the October 20th 70 rule, those who prefer a small sacrifice today to debt tomorrow, discover that true freedom is priceless. Chapter number 6. The Psychology of Money. Money, though it may seem like a purely mathematical subject, is deeply connected to the human mind. It's not enough to know about percentages, investments, or financial strategies if the mind isn't prepared to receive, preserve, and grow wealth. The reality is that what each person believes about money determines, more than their income, the amount of wealth they can accumulate in their lifetime. And this is where the psychology of money comes into play, an invisible yet powerful realm that explains why two individuals with the same opportunities can end up with completely opposite destinies. Beliefs are like filters through which we interpret reality. If a person has grown up hearing phrases like, money is bad, rich people are corrupt, or we'll never have enough, they are likely to carry these ideas as unconscious truths that will condition all their financial decisions. For example, someone who believes that being rich is synonymous with greed might, without realizing it, sabotage their own attempts to generate abundance because, deep down, they don't want to become what they despise. On the other hand, someone who believes that money is a tool to serve and create value will approach it naturally and confidently, without guilt or fear. The power of beliefs is so great that it can open or close doors without one even realizing it. A worker who thinks, I wasn't born to be rich, will probably never consider investing or starting a business because they believe it's beyond their reach. That simple belief limits them more than any lack of resources. On the other hand, someone who believes that anyone can learn to build wealth if they educate themselves and are disciplined will constantly seek opportunities to grow, and sooner or later they will find them. Wealth begins in the mind long before it manifests in the bank account. Overcoming a scarcity mindset is one of the most transformative steps on the path to financial freedom. A scarcity mindset is characterized by always thinking in terms of lack. It's not enough. We have to survive. If someone wins, someone else loses. Under this logic, the world is a limited pie where every piece someone else takes reduces my possibilities. But the truth is that the economy works differently. The pie can grow. Creating value means generating more wealth, not taking it away from someone else. When you understand this, you stop looking enviously at the success of others and begin to be inspired by it. The triumph of others is not a threat, but evidence of what is also possible for you. A scarcity mindset manifests itself in small ways. It's in those who keep money under the mattress for fear of losing it instead of investing it to grow. It's in those who never share their knowledge because they think revealing their secrets will cost them opportunities. It's in those obsessed with comparison, believing that another's success diminishes their own potential. Changing this mindset requires conscious practice, training the mind to think in terms of abundance, to see opportunities where others only see limitations, to believe there is always more to create and discover. One of the greatest enemies of abundance is instant gratification. Modern society trains us to want everything instantly. A click and a product arrives, a credit card and you enjoy it without waiting, a social network and you receive instant validation. This mental habit robs us of the ability to postpone pleasure in exchange for a greater benefit in the future. Those who spend everything they earn today on immediate pleasures are mortgaging their freedom tomorrow. On the other hand, those who learn to delay gratification, who understand that sowing now yields much greater harvests later, place themselves in an incomparable position of advantage. Let's consider a simple example. Two friends receive a $1,000 bonus. One spends it immediately on clothes and gadgets. The other decides to invest it in a fund with an average annual return of 8%. 10 years later, the first friend has nothing to show for that money but vague memories. The second, on the other hand, sees how that single bonus multiplied not through luck, but through patience. The difference between them isn't the initial amount, but the ability to postpone immediate gratification for future reward. And the same applies to all areas of life, from health to relationships. Those who understand the power of waiting achieve exponential results. Reprogramming your mind to think like a wealthy person doesn't mean desiring luxuries or being greedy, but rather adopting mental patterns that foster wealth creation. Wealthy people generally don't think about spending. They think about multiplying. They don't ask, how much does it cost? But rather, how can I generate it? They see opportunities where others only see risks. And above all, they understand that true wealth isn't about having money, but about having freedom of time, options, and decisions. This mindset doesn't develop overnight. It's cultivated daily with new beliefs and new habits. One way to reprogram the mind is through continuous learning. Read biographies of people who have built fortunes from scratch, study finance books, listen to audiobooks, and surround yourself with conversations where money isn't taboo, but a natural topic. Little by little, the brain gets used to a new language, a new way of seeing the world. Another powerful technique is visualization. Vividly imagining the abundant life you want to build, not as a fanciful dream, but as a project in progress. When the brain accepts that image as possible, it begins to direct actions toward it. Practicing gratitude is also fundamental. Paradoxically, those who make the most progress toward wealth are those who learn to value what they already have. Gratitude generates a sense of abundance in the present, which opens up space to receive more in the future. A person who always feels they don't have enough will never be satisfied, even if their wealth grows. On the other hand, those who are grateful for every step forward, no matter how small, cultivate a positive mindset that attracts more opportunities. Gratitude is not complacency. It is recognizing present abundance while working toward greater abundance. Money obeys invisible laws of the mind. If you think with fear, it slips away. If you think with confidence and purpose, it multiplies. That's why changing your beliefs is as important as learning about finance. An individual can receive the best technical education, but if they continue to feel unworthy of wealth, if they believe they can't achieve it, if they think it's a matter of luck, they will never reach their full potential. The psychology of money is the soil where the seeds of abundance are sown. And those who cultivate that soil with thoughts of confidence, discipline, and gratitude reap a life of freedom. Chapter number 7. Financial Tools for Capitalization. Knowledge is the best shield against financial uncertainty. Many people avoid investing because they believe it's too complex, that only experts in smart suits with sophisticated calculators can handle it. The truth is quite different. Anyone, even with limited capital, can learn to use financial tools that are accessible to everyone. The secret isn't memorizing technical terms, but understanding the basic principles and knowing how to apply them. Investing isn't a matter of luck, it's a process of education and strategy. One of the simplest, yet often underestimated tools is the savings account. Many people think a savings account is just a place where money sits idle, generating no real returns. And to a large extent, that's true. Banks typically pay very low interest rates. However, it's still a starting point, a way to safeguard initial capital and create a savings habit. More than for its profitability, the savings account serves a psychological purpose. It helps set aside money to build financial strength. What begins as $100 saved becomes the first brick in a more solid financial foundation. After savings accounts come bonds, which are essentially loans you make to governments or companies in exchange for interest. Bonds are generally safer than other investments, but they also offer lower returns. They're ideal for those seeking stability and who prefer to protect their money rather than risk it. A clear example is a treasury bond. It's like lending money to the government with the promise of repaying it in a few years plus interest. It's not the most exciting investment, but it is a reliable foundation within a diversified portfolio. Investment funds, on the other hand, are an excellent option for those who lack the time or experience to analyze individual companies. A fund pools money from many investors and is managed by a professional who invested in different assets. This means that with a small amount of capital, you can access a diversified portfolio, something that would otherwise be impossible. Imagine having just $100 and, through a fund, indirectly owning shares in technology companies, government bonds, and even real estate. That's the magic of funds. They allow small investors to play in the big leagues. Stocks represent another level of ownership, owning a part of a company. When you buy stocks, you're not just investing money, you're acquiring a piece of that company. If the company grows, you grow with it. If it expands, your profits grow too. Stocks have the potential to generate much higher returns than bonds or savings accounts, but they also carry greater risk. This is where patience comes in. Those who invest with a long-term perspective can see their money multiply several times over. Just look at examples like Apple or Amazon, companies that 20 years ago seemed like risky bets and today have turned consistent investors into millionaires. Understanding risk versus security is key. There is no perfect investment that is both safe and highly profitable. Risk and reward are always intertwined. A bank deposit is safe, but it yields almost no returns. A share of an emerging startup can multiply your money, but it can also wipe you out completely. The question isn't, what is the best investment? But rather, what is the right investment for me at this stage of my life? A 20-year-old can afford to take more risks because they have time to recover from losses. Someone nearing retirement, on the other hand, will likely prefer security to volatility. The power of diversification is one of the most important lessons in the financial world. Never put all your eggs in one basket. Even the best investors in the world, with access to insider information, know that no bet is foolproof. That's why they spread their capital across different assets. If one part fails, another can compensate. Imagine you invest in technology stocks, government bonds, and a real estate fund. If the technology market crashes, the bonds can continue to generate stable income, and the real estate fund can maintain its value. Diversification doesn't eliminate risk, but it significantly reduces it and increases the odds of long-term success. Practical examples show that you don't need a fortune to get started. Let's say someone has just $50 a month to invest. They can begin with a low-cost index fund that tracks the overall market performance. With consistent contributions, those small investments grow thanks to compound interest. Another example, someone who manages to save $500 and decides to buy short-term bonds. They may not become a millionaire, but they will build confidence and learn through experience. The important thing isn't the initial amount, but the decision to get involved. An inspiring story is that of a young university student who began investing the money she earned tutoring. Instead of spending it on clothes or entertainment, she allocated a portion each month to an index fund. After 5 years, she had not only accumulated a respectable amount of capital but had also developed an investor mindset. She learned to read the market, understand economic cycles, and, above all, trust in the discipline of the long term. What seemed like a sacrifice became a springboard to financial freedom. Another interesting case is that of a worker who decided to divide his small capital into 3 parts. One in safe bonds, another in shares of solid companies, and the third in a diversified fund. Over time, he saw that some investments grew faster than others, but overall his wealth increased without any major fluctuations. That's the effect of diversification, not depending on a single asset but playing several at once. The fear of losing money is natural, but the real loss lies in doing nothing. Keeping all your capital under the mattress doesn't protect it. On the contrary, inflation erodes it. Every year, uninvested money silently loses value. The key is to take action, to learn, to take small steps that build confidence. No one needs to be a Wall Street genius to achieve this. It's enough to understand the basics, act with discipline, and let time do its work. Ultimately, financial tools are like vehicles. Some are slower but safer, like bonds. Others are faster but riskier, like stocks. The important thing isn't choosing just one, but combining them according to your desired destination. The key is to remember that money, when put to work, becomes a silent ally. It doesn't matter if you start small. What matters is starting and never stopping. The real magic happens when the habit becomes a lifestyle, and the tools transform into bridges to abundance. Chapter number 8. The Financial Snowball. Money has a silent but powerful quality. When patiently accumulated and wisely reinvested, it begins to grow like a snowball rolling down a mountain. At first, that snowball is small, almost insignificant, just a handful of savings or a few dollars invested. But as it rolls and moves forward, it gains size, strength, and speed. That is the clearest metaphor for understanding wealth. It is not a sudden stroke of luck, but a slow build-up that, over time, becomes an unstoppable force. Small amounts are the starting point. $100 invested wisely may seem like nothing, but when it generates a return and that return is reinvested, the dynamic changes. Compound interest is the magic behind the snowball effect. It's like planting a seed. It doesn't bear fruit immediately, but if nurtured, over the years it grows into a tree that provides shade and sustenance. Those who manage to remain consistent without becoming desperate for quick results end up seeing their capital grow far beyond what they could have imagined at the beginning. The strategies for accelerating this growth don't involve seeking dangerous shortcuts, but rather reinvesting every profit. Let's say someone invests $1,000 and earns a 10% annual return. The first year they'll earn $100. Most people would take that $100 out to spend, but the truly savvy investor reinvests it, adding to their initial capital. The following year they won't invest $1,000 but $1,100. That difference, though it may seem small, marks the path to exponential growth. Over the years, this discipline transforms modest sums into impressive amounts. Warren Buffett, one of the richest men on the planet, has described his fortune precisely with this metaphor. A snowball that began when he was just a boy curious about investing. He didn't inherit a gigantic empire or win the lottery. What he did was learn early on the power of reinvesting. He bought small stocks, sold newspapers, saved every penny, and made it work for him. Over time, his capital grew, and as it grew, he could take advantage of better opportunities. His story is living proof that real wealth doesn't come from a gimmick, but from patient and strategic accumulation. The fascinating thing about the snowball effect is that at first it demands effort, consistency, and even sacrifice. It's like pushing something heavy that seems to be stuck. Many people give up in that initial phase because they feel the results are too slow. But those who persevere discover a turning point. The moment arrives when the snowball starts rolling on its own, and what once required constant pushing now moves forward under its own weight. That's when the interest generated exceeds your initial contributions. In other words, your money starts working harder than you. There are simple formulas to measure your progress and ensure your snowball is truly growing. One is calculating your savings rate, how much of your income you're allocating to investments. Another is to periodically review the growth of your net worth, that is, what you actually own minus what you owe. If your net worth increases each year, even slightly, it means the snowball is forming. You can also use the rule of 72. Divide 72 by the interest rate you earn, and you'll get the approximate number of years it will take for your money to double. For example, at 12% annual interest, your capital will double in just 6 years. The key isn't just reinvesting, but staying the course amidst temptation. Many fall into the trap of interrupting the process to spend their accumulated wealth on immediate gratification. But every time you take money out of the snowball, you slow it down. True commitment lies in letting it keep rolling even when tempted to stop it. Today's sacrifice is tomorrow's abundance. The most powerful aspect of this principle is that it's not reserved for millionaires or experts. Anyone can start their own financial snowball. A student who saves their lunch change, a worker who sets aside a small percentage of their salary, an entrepreneur who reinvests their initial profits instead of spending them on luxuries, They are all creating the conditions for their snowball to eventually become an unstoppable force. Imagine two friends who start working at the same time. One decides to spend all his earnings, enjoying the present without worrying about the future. The other decides to set aside just 10% of his income and reinvest it every year. 10 years pass, and the difference isn't very significant. One has memories and experiences, the other has a small amount of capital. But if you look at them 20 or 30 years later, the story changes dramatically. The first is still working hard to maintain his lifestyle, while the second has accumulated so much wealth that it generates enough passive income to live comfortably. That's the magic of time and discipline. The financial snowball effect is, essentially, a pact with yourself. It's recognizing that money has a life cycle and that the sooner you start rolling it, the bigger the end result will be. Your age, income, or current situation doesn't matter. What matters is deciding to push today, even if it seems like nothing is changing. The secret lies in trusting the process, not giving up in the initial stages, and understanding that true wealth isn't measured by speed, but by consistency. Chapter number 9. Obstacles on the path to capitalization. The road to wealth accumulation is not a straight and clear highway. On the contrary, it is full of potholes, detours, and obstacles that test the patience and determination of everyone who decides to travel it. Knowing how to save or having a clear understanding of how to invest is not enough. The real test comes when financial enemies appear, trying to slow down or even destroy the snowball we have so painstakingly set in motion. Among these obstacles, 3 of the most dangerous stand out: debt, inflation, and our own mistakes, which we often make without realizing it. Debt is one of the heaviest chains someone can drag when trying to build wealth. Not all debt is created equal, it's true, but most are designed to keep you trapped in a cycle that seems impossible to break. A poorly managed credit card, a consumer loan, or even a personal loan with high interest rates can become a drain on your savings. Every dollar spent on interest is a dollar that doesn't grow. It's money that could have generated returns for you, but now it's working to enrich someone else. The first lesson when dealing with debt is to face it without fear, with a clear and determined plan. It's not about ignoring it or making only minimal payments that never reduce the principal, but about tackling it with discipline, always prioritizing the highest interest debt. Many discover that by turning debt repayment into a challenge, they achieve the same sense of satisfaction they would get from saving or investing, because each reduced balance is like taking weight off the snowball, allowing it to roll more easily. But there's another approach: transforming debt into leverage. This happens when, instead of taking on consumer debt, someone uses strategic debt, such as a mortgage, to acquire a property that appreciates over time or generates passive income. The key is understanding the difference between bad debt and good debt. The former restricts your freedom, while the latter can help you create it. However, even good debt must be managed carefully, because if it becomes excessive, it transforms into a risk. The balance between leveraging wisely and maintaining financial security is one of the secrets of investors who manage to grow without going bankrupt. The second major obstacle is inflation, that invisible enemy that erodes the purchasing power of money without most people immediately noticing. Inflation is like a leak in a boat. Even if you row hard, if you don't plug the leak, sooner or later you'll sink. Many people keep their money in savings accounts that barely pay minimal interest, without realizing that they are actually losing value every year. What you can buy today with $100 will require $120 or more in a few years. That's why leaving money idle, immobile, and unused is practically condemning it to disappear. The only way to beat inflation is to make money grow at a rate higher than inflation. This is where investments make sense, because it's not about accumulating cash, but about transforming that cash into assets that grow over time. A clear example can be seen in those who decided to invest in real estate 20 or 30 years ago. Many bought properties at prices that would seem ridiculously low today, and thanks to inflation, those properties are worth much more in nominal terms. The same is true for shares of solid companies that have grown alongside the economy. The secret is that, while inflation destroys the value of idle money, it rewards those who put their money into assets that appreciate. Therefore, the right mindset is to see inflation not as an insurmountable enemy, but as a challenge that forces you to seek ways to protect and grow what you have. The third obstacle is the common mistakes that destroy wealth. There's nothing more painful than watching years of work and discipline vanish due to hasty or ill-informed decisions. Often these mistakes stem from emotion. Greed leads people to invest in schemes that promise quick and extraordinary returns, but which are actually traps in disguise. Other times, fear causes someone to withdraw their money at the worst possible moment, selling cheaply and missing the opportunity to recover. Haste, lack of information, and the inability to control emotions have ruined entire fortunes. That's why learning to manage emotions is just as important as learning to manage numbers. A cool and disciplined investor is more likely to win than a genius who lets anxiety or euphoria take over. And finally, there's the challenge of staying the course during times of crisis. Economic crises are inevitable. In fact, they occur cyclically, like seasons that return again and again. During these times, markets crash, prices plummet, and most people panic. The temptation to abandon the strategy and protect what little remains is enormous. But true capitalists know that crises are also opportunities in disguise. When everything seems to be collapsing, the lower prices represent the chance to buy valuable assets at a discount. Staying calm, not succumbing to collective hysteria, and sticking to the investment strategy is what separates those who lose out in crises from those who build fortunes from them. Overcoming these obstacles doesn't mean the road ahead will be easy, but rather that you'll be prepared to face it intelligently. Debt, inflation, mistakes, and crises won't disappear from your life, but you can decide how to respond to them. Instead of being a victim, you can become the protagonist. Instead of letting them destroy your snowball, you can use them as momentum to make it roll even faster. In the end, wealth isn't built in the absence of obstacles, but precisely in the way we confront them and transform them into learning experiences. Chapter number 10, The Art of Waiting and Not Giving Up. The biggest challenge for those seeking to grow their money isn't math, or even choosing the right investment, but patience. Wealth, like any natural process, needs time to develop. Just as a seed doesn't become a tree overnight, money invested doesn't instantly become a fortune. However, what often crushes many people's financial dreams isn't a lack of intelligence or opportunities, but the inability to wait long enough to see results. Impatience is perhaps the most common enemy of wealth accumulation. Throughout history, we've seen countless examples of people who gave up too soon. Young people who started with enthusiasm, opened investment accounts, and put their initial savings into them, but when they didn't see immediate results, they decided to withdraw their money and spend it. People who stopped contributing to their retirement funds because they felt it wasn't worth it, failing to understand that what seemed insignificant today could, over the years, become something enormous. Quitting is like pulling up a plant just as it begins to sprout. You not only interrupt its growth but also waste all the previous effort. Many of today's millionaires are so not because they were smarter than others, but because they had the strength to wait long enough. The fable of the tortoise and the hare perfectly illustrates this principle applied to finance. The hare, swift and confident, represents those who seek shortcuts, who want to get rich overnight, who chase trends and promises of quick riches. The tortoise, on the other hand, moves slowly but never stops, maintaining its course with discipline and patience, trusting that perseverance will bring victory. And in the end, the tortoise always wins. The same is true with money. It is not initial speed that determines wealth, but perseverance. Those who save and invest consistently without being deterred by distractions along the way end up surpassing those who started fast but gave up halfway through. The challenge lies in maintaining motivation throughout long processes. It's easy to get excited at the beginning when everything is new and you feel the first signs of progress. The hard part is staying the course when progress seems slow, when results aren't yet reflected in large numbers, when daily life offers countless temptations to spend instead of invest. In those moments, motivation won't come from external sources, but from the internal vision each of you cultivates. That's why visualizing the future is such a powerful tool. It's not about daydreaming, but about concretely projecting what your life will look like in 10, 20, or 30 years if you continue with your strategy. Imagine the freedom of not depending on a job, the peace of mind of knowing your children are protected, the security of having income that comes in even while you sleep. That vision, repeated and reinforced, is the fuel that keeps motivation burning when everything seems to be slow. An effective strategy is to break the process down into small goals and celebrate each step forward. You don't need to wait 30 years to feel satisfied. Every year debt-free is a victory, every new contribution to your investment fund is a firm step, every bit of compound interest that accumulates is a sign that you're on the right track. By recognizing and celebrating these small achievements, your mind is trained to enjoy the process, not just the final destination. And when you enjoy the process, it's much easier to stay committed over time. Another strategy is to surround yourself with people who share the same vision. The path to wealth accumulation can become lonely if everyone around you is only thinking about spending and consuming. But when you surround yourself with people who value saving, investing, and discipline, social pressure becomes an ally instead of an enemy. Sharing goals, lessons learned, and even mistakes with others pursuing the same objectives multiplies motivation and makes waiting feel not like a sacrifice, but like a shared journey. It's also vital to learn how to manage instant gratification. The modern world is designed for everything to be instant: food, entertainment, online shopping. This culture of immediacy accustoms us to wanting quick results in everything, but wealth doesn't follow that logic. Delayed gratification is the ability to postpone present pleasure in order to obtain a greater one in the future. And it's precisely this skill that distinguishes the rich from the poor. Every time you choose to invest instead of spending, you're practicing delayed gratification, and in doing so, you strengthen your patience. The key is not to see the waiting period as wasted time, but as a time of building. During those years when your money grows, you also grow. You learn more about finance, develop stronger habits, acquire discipline, and strengthen your character. In this way, when the time finally comes to reap the rewards, you will not only have accumulated wealth, but also the maturity necessary to manage it wisely. The art of waiting and not giving up is, in reality, the art of trusting the process. Financial life isn't a sprint. It's a marathon that rewards those who know how to maintain their pace, even if it's slow, even if at times it seems like there's no progress. True wealth doesn't arrive in a flash, but as the result of thousands of small steps accumulated with patience. And in the end, those who reach the finish line aren't the fastest, but the most consistent. Those who understood that giving up was never an option. Chapter number 11. Capitalization beyond money. When we hear the word capitalization, most people immediately associate it with money. However, the deeper truth is that capitalization is a universal law that manifests itself in all aspects of life. Money is just one of the areas where this principle operates, but it is neither the only nor the most important. Those who understand that they can capitalize on their knowledge, their relationships, their health, their energy, and even their experiences, discover that wealth is not measured solely in bank figures, but in the cumulative power of everything that nourishes and strengthens their lives. Learning is one of the most profitable investments there is, and a clear example of capitalization. Every book read, every course taken, every conversation that teaches you something new becomes a seed that, over time, multiplies. At first, it may seem that studying or learning is an effort that doesn't yield immediate results, but the years eventually prove that knowledge accumulates, combines, transforms into skills, and opens doors that would otherwise remain closed. A doctor who dedicates time to continued learning, a lawyer who stays up to date on the law, an entrepreneur who reads about market trends, all of them are capitalizing on knowledge. And the most powerful thing is that, unlike money which can be lost, knowledge, once acquired, is difficult to take away. It stays with you and multiplies every time you apply it. In fact, many of the world's wealthiest individuals understand that their true capital lies not in their bank accounts, but in their knowledge. This is why they can rebuild empires, even after losing everything. Money may fluctuate, but what they've learned remains, and that's what allows them to rebuild from scratch. Capitalizing on knowledge means understanding that the mind is the most important asset we possess and that every investment in education, reading, and learning experiences yields lifelong dividends. But learning isn't enough. It's also essential to capitalize on relationships. In an interconnected world, networks become gateways that multiply opportunities. Every person you meet can open doors to new projects, new investments, new collaborations. Just as diversification is a key strategy in finance, it's equally crucial in relationships. It's not about accumulating contacts like someone collecting business cards, but about cultivating genuine relationships based on trust, reciprocity, and mutual value. The time invested in getting to know others, in helping, in listening, in contributing, pays off in the future in the form of recommendations, partnerships, and unexpected opportunities. There are famous stories of entrepreneurs who landed their first investors, their first clients, or their first mentors simply because they knew how to leverage a relationship. The interesting thing is that these connections don't arise from pure chance, but from the habit of consistently nurturing others, offering advice, support, a gesture of trust. Over the years, these seeds grow and multiply. That's why a solid network is a silent asset that is often worth more than money. Another crucial aspect that is rarely mentioned is the importance of investing in health and energy. Building economic wealth is useless if your body is broken down and you lack the energy to enjoy it. Every hour of good sleep, every healthy meal, every consistent exercise session, every preventative doctor's visit, these are small investments that, accumulated over time, translate into years of vitality. Health isn't built overnight. It's the result of sustained habits that, over the years, translate into a better quality of life. Those who sacrifice their health in pursuit of money often discover too late that without energy and a fulfilling life, everything they've accumulated is meaningless. Imagine your body as a machine that generates your wealth. If you don't take care of the engine, sooner or later the machine will stop. On the other hand, if you invest in maintaining it, that machine will run for decades and multiply its output. Capitalizing on health means understanding that what you do with your body today is not neutral. You either slowly deteriorate it or strengthen it for the future. An entrepreneur with energy, mental clarity, and physical strength is able to seize opportunities that someone exhausted or ill couldn't even perceive. Health, then, is not only life, it's also an indirect financial asset that enhances all your other investments. Life, in its entirety, obeys the same laws of compounding. Everything that is repeated, everything that accumulates, everything that multiplies over time either builds or destroys. Daily habits, the words you speak, the emotions you nurture, everything generates compound interest. If you consistently choose thoughts of gratitude and optimism, over the years your mind will become more resilient, stronger, and more creative. If, on the other hand, you nurture complaining, fear, or envy, those emotions also compound and end up becoming an invisible prison that limits your life. What's fascinating about this principle is its neutrality. It doesn't distinguish between positive and negative. Capitalization always works, and it's up to you to decide what you'll multiply. Sound knowledge, valuable relationships, health, and good habits, and you'll see how your entire life becomes an abundant harvest. But if you sow ignorance, isolation, neglect, and vices, you'll also reap the accumulated result of those choices. Ultimately, understanding that capitalization goes beyond money means understanding that true wealth is holistic. It's not just about having full bank accounts, but about possessing a brilliant mind, a healthy body, meaningful relationships, and a peaceful spirit. All of this, accumulated over time, creates a life rich in every sense. And the most extraordinary thing is that the laws of capitalization make no exceptions. They are available to anyone who decides to apply them with discipline and patience. The secret lies in remembering that each day is an opportunity to sow seeds in these areas. A book read today, a genuine call to a friend, a 30-minute walk, an act of gratitude. These may seem small and even insignificant, but when repeated daily they become an unstoppable force. Just as compound interest transforms a few savings into a fortune, compounded habits transform an ordinary life into an extraordinary one. Chapter number 12, Advanced Growth Strategies. Once you've grasped the basic principles of capitalization and taken the first steps on the path to building wealth, it's time to move to the next level, advanced growth strategies. These aren't magic formulas or secrets reserved only for billionaires. They're systems that anyone can consciously and diligently apply, tailored to their own circumstances. The power of these strategies lies in their ability to accelerate the process, eliminate friction, and allow money, time, and energy to work for you even when you're not present. The first essential strategy is automating your saving and investing. Most people fail not because they don't earn enough money, but because they lack the discipline to consistently set aside a portion of their income. Automation solves this problem by making discipline a system. If each month a portion of your income is automatically transferred to a savings or investment account before you can spend it, you're ensuring that your financial growth depends not on willpower, but on a programmed mechanism. Over time, these automatic transfers become the foundation of a solid financial base. It's like planting a tree that, without you noticing, silently grows until it provides you with shade and abundant fruit. But saving and investing aren't enough if you only do it in one direction. Real financial progress happens when you create multiple sources of passive income. Relying on a single job, business, or investment is like trying to sail with only one sail on an uncertain sea. In contrast, having several income streams, even small ones, gives you stability, security, and speed. Passive income can come in many forms: property rentals, book royalties, stock dividends, online businesses that run on autopilot, or systems that require little maintenance once up and running. The powerful thing is that each source, however small, creates a cumulative effect when combined with others. Imagine you manage to build 5 passive income streams of $100 each per month. It might seem like a small amount, but that's an extra $500 coming in without you having to directly contribute. Now, if you reinvest that $500 and grow it, you'll soon have not just $500 but $1,000, then $2,000, and over the years, that passive income can surpass what you currently earn from your active job. This principle is what transforms an ordinary person into someone financially free. It's not about huge leaps forward immediately, but about gradually adding sources that, little by little, change your reality. Modern technology is an indispensable ally for these strategies. Today, platforms exist that allow you to invest small amounts in real estate, stocks, cryptocurrencies, diversified funds, and more. Mobile apps round up your purchases and allocate the remaining cents to an investment. Financial robots manage your portfolio according to your risk profile, and accounts generate interest automatically without your intervention. Technology has democratized access to tools that were once reserved for large investors. The secret lies in using them intelligently and not being swayed by emotion or trends. Technological automation is not an excuse to disconnect from responsibility, but rather a way to enhance your growth potential. Another way to leverage technology is to create online businesses that operate around the clock. A digital store, a video course, an ebook, an automated service, all of these are vehicles that allow you to generate income while you sleep. The key is to build systems that, once designed, function with minimal intervention. They require effort initially, but over time they become true passive income streams. In this way, your time is no longer limited to a direct exchange for money and begins to multiply thanks to the scalability of technology. When we analyze the strategies of billionaires, we discover that most rely on these same principles, only on a larger scale. They diversify, automate, create systems, and make the most of technology. However, what's most inspiring is that these principles can be applied on a smaller scale. You don't need millions to start investing, automating, or creating passive income. All it takes is taking consistent steps from where you are. A billionaire invests in large real estate projects. You can start by buying a small plot of land or participating in a collective real estate fund. They automate million-dollar investments. You can schedule a $50 monthly transfer to an investment fund. They build global companies. You can design a digital product and sell it online. What makes the difference isn't the initial magnitude, but the mindset and discipline to apply these strategies over time. Capitalization will do the rest. Every automated dollar, every passive income stream, every technological system working in your favor becomes a cog in a machine that grows and expands. And when that machine is in motion, there comes a point where personal effort ceases to be the primary force, and the systems take over working for you. These advanced growth strategies are, in reality, an invitation to think beyond the immediate and build a financial ecosystem where time and money are no longer tied to your direct effort. It's about living with the peace of mind that, even when you rest, travel, or face unexpected events, your income keeps coming in, your money keeps growing, and your future keeps getting stronger. It's the difference between working for money and making money work for you. Chapter number 13. Your Master Capitalization Plan. At this point, your journey toward building wealth has evolved from a simple idea into a concrete vision. You've grasped the principles, explored strategies, learned about the tools, and reflected on the obstacles. Now it's time to bring all these pieces together into a master plan, a personal financial roadmap that clearly guides your steps. A map isn't a fixed path, but rather a guide that orients you even when you need to deviate, adapt, or change course. Designing your master plan for building wealth means recognizing where you are today, defining where you want to go, and creating the bridge that connects those 2 points with measurable, sustainable, and progressive actions. The first step in this process is to have absolute clarity about your starting point. It's not just about knowing how much money you have in your account, but about analyzing your entire financial flow. Income, expenses, debts, savings, assets, and even your spending habits. Honesty is vital here. If you deceive yourself with your numbers, you'll be building a castle in the air. Take a piece of paper and write everything down in detail. How much you earn, how much you spend, how much you owe, how much you invest, and how much you actually have left over each month. This inventory is the map of your present situation. Next, define your goals. And not vague goals like, I want to be rich, or I want financial freedom. Goals should be smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. It's not the same to say, I want to save money, as it is to declare, I want to accumulate $10,000 in the next 3 years to invest in real estate. That precision transforms a dream into a goal. By breaking down the goal into smaller steps, such as monthly, weekly, or even daily savings, the task ceases to be overwhelming and becomes a concrete and realistic plan. Once you define your goals, you need to develop strategies to achieve them. This is where everything you've learned comes into play. Automating savings, creating passive income streams, diversifying investments, and consciously controlling expenses. For example, if your goal is to accumulate capital to invest in a small business, your strategy might be to automate monthly savings, cut unnecessary expenses, generate a parallel passive income stream, and reinvest the returns. Each action is a step on the ladder toward your goal. However, no master plan is immutable. Life changes, economic circumstances vary, crises arise, and opportunities appear when you least expect them. Therefore, a fundamental aspect of your financial roadmap is the ability to adjust. Adjusting your course doesn't mean failing. It means being flexible enough to adapt without losing sight of your goal. If you lose your job, you may need to temporarily reduce your savings contributions, but don't abandon your plan. If a more attractive investment opportunity arises, you may need to redirect some of your capital. The secret is maintaining a balance between firmness and flexibility, between vision and adaptability. This adjustment process requires an essential habit: reviewing your master plan frequently. Just as a pilot constantly checks their flight instruments, you should evaluate your financial progress monthly or quarterly. Ask yourself, am I meeting my savings goals? Is my passive income growing? Have I fallen into unnecessary expenses? Have I diversified enough? Each review is an opportunity to correct mistakes, reinforce successes, and keep your motivation alive. The master plan for building wealth isn't just for you. One of the most powerful legacies you can leave is teaching these principles to the next generation. Educating your children, nieces, nephews, or other young people close to you about the value of building wealth is giving them a tool that will transform their lives far more than any material inheritance. A child who understands how to save, invest, and reinvest will be more financially secure than one who receives money without financial education. Your legacy isn't just what you build, but what you inspire in others. Teaching wealth building is like planting trees that will continue to bear fruit long after you're gone. When sharing this knowledge, don't just use words, but lead by example. Demonstrate discipline, share your goals, celebrate achievements as a family, and involve others in small savings or investment projects. Make saving a part of your home culture. Imagine your children watching as every coin they put in a piggy bank becomes the seed of a future investment fund. That kind of hands-on teaching is worth more than any lecture. Ultimately, your master capitalization plan is a commitment to yourself and your future. It's not about chasing money for money's sake, but about designing a life where your resources work with you to give you freedom, peace of mind, and purpose. Your financial map is your compass in a world full of distractions, temptations, and uncertain paths. With it, you can keep your eye on your destination, knowing that every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to financial freedom. This chapter is an invitation to move from theory to action, from inspiration to concrete design. You have the tools, the examples, and the strategies at your fingertips. Now it's up to you to draw your map, mark your starting point, define your goals, chart your course, make adjustments, and decide what legacy you will leave. Because ultimately, building wealth isn't just about accumulating money, but about creating an intentional, designed, and conscious life. A life where every resource, every effort, and every decision becomes part of a larger structure. Your master plan for building wealth. Epilogue. Your new financial reality. When we reach the end of a journey, we often think it's all over. But in reality, what lies before you is not a closure, but an opening. Throughout these pages, you've explored the principles of capitalization, witnessing how time, patience, discipline, and vision build realities that at first glance seem impossible. Today, in this epilogue, you're not facing an ending but a new beginning. You've sown seeds of knowledge, and each of those seeds has the power to grow into a leafy tree that will bear fruit for generations. The question you must ask yourself is not whether you can achieve it, but when you will decide to begin applying what you've learned. The most powerful lesson you can take away is that everything great starts small. No financial empire was ever built overnight. No lasting fortune appeared like magic. It all began with a first decision, a first step, a first action. Just as a farmer plants tiny seeds, trusting that the soil and time will do their work, so too must you plant those financial, personal, and emotional seeds that, with patience, will transform into abundance. Every penny saved, every investment reinvested, every expense avoided is a seed. And time, your great invisible ally, takes care of the rest. Think for a moment about your own future. Imagine 10, 20, 30 years have passed. How do you want to see yourself? Do you want to remain trapped in the same worries, enslaved by debt, working only to survive? Or do you prefer to envision a life of freedom, where money works for you, where your decisions don't depend on the month's urgency, but on the vision you've built? That future isn't created automatically, it's designed with every action you take today. The you of tomorrow will depend on the you of this moment. And that's the great truth that distinguishes those who achieve abundance from those who only dream of it. The world is full of stories of people who started with nothing and built everything. Young people who, without inheritances, decided to save a small portion of their salary and, over the years, found they had created wealth. Families who lived with discipline, who refused to spend on empty luxuries, and who today enjoy financial peace of mind. Even those who started late, burdened with debt, were able to redirect their lives by learning how to build equity. The key isn't where you start, but the decision to begin. It's never too late, but the sooner you start, the sooner you'll see the fruits of your labor grow. There's one essential reminder you must carry with you. The true hero of this story is you. It's not me, it's not the examples you've seen, nor the stories of famous millionaires. The protagonist is you, with your daily decisions, your ability to persevere, your discipline, and your vision. This knowledge will be useless if you don't put it into action. The hero of your financial life isn't outside. It's within you, in that part of you that dares to say, enough, to old habits and sets out to build something new. That inner voice that tells you that you deserve more, that you can do more, that you have the power to transform your reality. And here comes the most important moment of this epilogue, the call to action. The best time to have started was yesterday. Yes, yesterday when you still had more time, when every penny invested would have had another day to grow. But if you didn't start yesterday, don't despair. The second best time to start is now, right this instant, the minute you're hearing these words. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when conditions are perfect. Because perfection never comes. The ideal moment is now. You hold in your hands the power to make a decision that will change your financial destiny forever. This epilogue is an invitation to close your eyes and visualize what you can achieve if you start today. Imagine that investment account growing over the years. Visualize the peace of mind of paying your bills without worry, the joy of seeing your children inherit not only material possessions, but also financial literacy, healthy habits, and an abundance mindset. Imagine the tranquility of waking up each morning without the anxiety of debt, with the certainty that your resources are working for you. All of this is not a distant dream. It is a real possibility that depends on your decision today. What you sow now, you will reap in the future. Every step you take today is a gift to your future self. The effort of this moment will multiply thanks to the law of compounding. The process may not be immediate. It may take time to see results, but just as the farmer doesn't hesitate to sow because he knows the harvest will come, so you must trust that your future will be abundant if you act consistently. Patience will be your best friend, and discipline your most faithful companion. And when you look back in 10 or 20 years, you will thank your past self for having made the decision to begin. Life is too short to spend merely surviving. You are called to something greater, to build, to create, to leave your mark. Money is not an end in itself. It is a tool for living life to the fullest, for having time, for caring for your loved ones, for enjoying experiences, for personal growth, and for contributing to the world. Your new financial reality is not just about accumulating wealth, but about capitalizing on every aspect of your life. Your knowledge, your relationships, your health, your time. Everything follows the same laws, everything obeys the same principle. What you sow and nurture grows. So, now that you've journeyed along this path of knowledge, only one question remains. What will you do with what you've learned? You can close this book and continue with your life as if nothing has changed, or you can decide to start building your new financial reality today. That decision, small in appearance, is actually gigantic because it will make the difference between a life of limitations and a life of freedom. Don't wait for someone else to do it for you. Don't wait for the government, luck, or a stroke of chance to change your destiny. You are the architect of your future. You are the hero of this story. And today, here and now, you have the opportunity to take the first step toward the life you've always wanted. Remember, the best time to start was yesterday. The second best is now. So, if this audiobook inspired you and you're ready to delve deeper into your personal growth and inner transformation, I invite you to discover another eye-opening audiobook that will change the way you see the world, your decisions, and your potential. Click here and I'll see you there.